On this vote, the yeas are 60 and the nays are 40. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn, having voted in the affirmative, the motion upon reconsideration is agreed to.
The future is bleak and uncertain. Given our current situation, things remain as they are. Truce, no truce, we do not see a truce. The war is ongoing and the horizon is dark. We see the country's situation as very difficult. Meat is scarce here and extremely expensive. As for vegetables, naturally, vegetables and fruits, avocados and everything else are all expensive. And people can't afford these goods because there is no cash and there is no money.
Gaza is in God's hands. How can Gaza be? It has been destroyed. There's no work and the situation is difficult. We want them to treat us well and for countries to stand with us. They are just watching us. They must help us and stand with us. We want a complete truce and we want the situation to improve, to return to our homes. They must stand with us seriously and effectively. We want to live in peace and with dignity.
Ukraine's Anti-Corruption Bureau said on Monday it was conducting a large-scale investigation into the country's energy sector. In a video, a detective from the state agency alleged a criminal conspiracy involving kickbacks at Ukraine's state nuclear power operator, Enerhoatom. He said a former advisor to the energy minister, Enerhoatom's head of security, a businessman, and 4, quote, back office workers were involved in a, quote, high-level criminal organization. None of the individuals were named in the statement. Ukraine's energy ministry and Enerhoatom did not immediately reply to requests for comment. Eradicating graft and shoring up the rule of law are key requirements for Kyiv to join the European Union. Ukraine's power system has been significantly damaged by a fresh campaign of Russian bombardment this autumn, causing massive power cuts for consumers across the country.
We've seen some crazy stuff in the last couple of months.
The electricity failed in the presidential palace in the middle of a reporter's interview with President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday. Russia has not hit nuclear plants, but has hit substations connected to them, according to Ukrainian authorities.
Super Typhoon Fungwang showed signs of slowing Monday after ravaging the northern part of the Philippines the day before. The giant storm saw stretches of farmland flooded, schools damaged, coastal towns battered by huge waves, and homes left tattered and without power. By Monday afternoon, 4 deaths had been reported. Earlier, more than 1 million people had been evacuated as the typhoon approached and gathered strength. Romeo Mariano, a resident of Santiago City in Isabela Province, said it was a tough night as Fungwang made landfall.
Actually po, di po talaga kami makatulog kagabi. We could not sleep last night because of the winds hitting our metal sheets and the tree branches falling. At yung mga nagsisulugan po ng mga puno, nung bandang 6, doon na po namin naramdaman yung hangin. We felt the winds and some rain picking up around 6 p.m. and it got stronger around 9 to 10 p.m. until the early morning. Almost all the tree branches nearby fell.
At yun po, paglabas po namin kanina, ganito na po natnan namin.
And when we got out to check our home, we saw the damage. As you can see, even the electrical post was damaged. So it might take days for our power to get restored.
As Filipinos emerge from Phung Wang's battering, officials warn that a large portion of the country may still face heavy rains, winds, and storm swells in coastal areas. Phung Wang was the 21st storm to hit the nation this year, with the Philippines still reeling from last week's Typhoon Kalmegi, which killed 224 in the country and another 5 in Vietnam. The typhoon is now forecast to hit Taiwan's densely populated west coast on Wednesday.
A tornado that tore through the southern Brazilian state of Paraná left 6 people dead and hundreds of people injured on Friday. That's according to the state government a day later, who say the town of Rio Bonito do Iguaçu was hit the hardest. Authorities say half of the urban areas saw roofs collapsed and structures failed, and that around 1,000 people were displaced. Roads were blocked and power lines damaged. The town's mayor, Cesar Augusto Bovino, said firefighters were still searching for victims.
Unfortunately, it was destroyed by this tornado. The images are shocking when you fly over the area and see firsthand what's happening. And Parana has been following the protocols we have here regarding the organization of our forces and security.
Volunteers and emergency crews were airlifting saline solution, medicine, and supplies to hard-hit areas. Authorities were also rushing rescue teams to the area, including elite responders with search dogs. The state's health secretary said hospitals were struggling to cope with nearly 500 patients treated in just 12 hours.
Today, our main goal is to start cleaning up the city, removing debris, and especially assessing the damage and losses so we can quickly provide financial resources to the people and business owners and ultimately restore normalcy to the municipality.
This is an unprecedented disaster, at least in recent history. It's so severe that we're struggling to identify affected areas and victims due to the scale of the devastation. It was likely a high-intensity phenomenon.
Peace talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan have broken down, although a Taliban spokesperson said a ceasefire continues to hold. In a video statement released by the Taliban on Saturday, Zabihullah Mujahid said negotiations had failed due to Islamabad insisting that Afghanistan assume responsibility for Pakistan's internal security, a demand he described as beyond Afghanistan's capacity. Pakistan's defense minister said on Friday the talks had collapsed, but he said a ceasefire would continue to hold as long as there were no attacks from Afghan soil. Last month, the country's militaries clashed, killing dozens. It was the worst violence as the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan in 2021. While both sides signed a ceasefire in Doha in October, a second round of negotiations in Istanbul last week ended without a long-term deal. It's due to a disagreement over militant groups hostile to Pakistan that operate inside Afghanistan. For decades, Pakistan and the Taliban enjoyed warm ties, but relations have worsened sharply in recent years. The October clashes followed Pakistani airstrikes earlier in the month on Kabul, among other locations, targeting the head of the Pakistani Taliban.
This has been a central problem with the BBC, this sort of contradiction in its governance structure. On the one hand, it's claimed to be independent of any vested interests and of government, but in practical terms, you have people at the very top of the BBC who have the final say on editorial policy, and this is how sometimes things play out. On the one hand, one take on the current controversy is to say, well, look, this is a very straightforward case of a right-wing figures on the board sort of defenestrating the leadership of the BBC. And I don't think that's completely untrue, but I think it's also the case that the people in the management side of the dispute, if you like, haven't really been able to set out any clear vision for what the BBC is, what it should do. There's lots of sort of nice words and statements about, you know, the BBC being trusted and so on, but there hasn't really been any public discussion around the BBC prior to this moment about how the BBC should interact with and respond to its audience.